The billionaire who had ridiculed her now remained frozen in shock as the waitress expressed herself more smoothly than a local speaker. Sarah positioned herself beneath the warm radiance of the chandeliers in the dining area of Dubai's six-star hotel, her simple black outfit blending into the backdrop of marble walls and velvet curtains. At 25 years old, with her brown hair pulled into a casual ponytail, a subtle scar above her eyebrow glinted in the light. Her attractiveness was subtle and natural, akin to a stone polished gently by flowing water. It wasn't the flashy type that craved the spotlight. Born into one of America's richest families and taken in by a linguistics expert who instilled in her self-control and the strength of language, Sarah moved with a reserve that others often confused for frailty. Yet the patrons in this place failed to recognize it. They noticed her worn shoes and bare hands, concluding she amounted to nothing, a mere insignificant figure amid a gathering of influence and status. This shift wasn't her regular one. Sarah had stepped in at the last moment to replace a colleague who failed to appear. Her mother in Ohio was fighting cancer, and the hospital expenses formed an unending wave, devouring every cent Sarah managed to make. Her feet throbbed from endless standing, her shoulders tense from hauling laden trays of fine glass and metal. Entering this exclusive dining space, set aside for magnates and officials, felt like venturing into a predator's lair. The atmosphere hung heavy with perfume and arrogance, and gazes tracked her, sizing her up before she arrived at the table. A lady in a sparkling gown tilted toward her companion, her tone a cutting murmur. Is that truly the finest they could select to wait on us? Sarah's jaw tightened, yet she pressed on, balancing her tray firmly, her expression a composed veil. Omar Al-Fayed occupied the head seat, his silk attire shining, his aura dominating the space. He was 50, with wide shoulders, piercing eyes, and a wit even keener, the sort of person who flourished by diminishing others. His daughter Isla sat on his left, a 22-year-old abroad for studies. Her dark gaze swept the room as if cataloging each expression, each phrase. The table displayed a spectacle of riches and vanity, a lawmaker with a skewed tie and an empty-sounding chuckle, a media tycoon with oiled back hair and a Rolex shouting wealth, and Clara, a socialite whose pearls and artificial grin concealed a mean edge. They gathered for a formal banquet, an evening of negotiations and showmanship, with Sarah merely an accessory in their play. Prior to Omar's remarks cutting the air, Sarah endured a sharper wound. In the kitchen, amid a brief pause, her phone vibrated inside her apron pocket. She pulled it free, her heart dropping as she scanned the message from her cousin. Insurance rejected mom's care once more. No choices left. Sarah's breath hitched, her fingers squeezing the device until her knuckles blanched. For months, she'd battled for her mother, taking every available hour, phoning every agency, begging for aid. The update struck like an unavoidable blow. She tucked the phone away, dried her hands on her apron, and re-entered the dining area, her features serene, but her hands quivering faintly. That's when Omar's voice boomed, his Arabic biting and derisive, the ensuing chuckles striking her like a blow. Sarah's tray tinkled gently as she placed it on a nearby stand, the noise scarcely piercing the diner's talk. A gentleman in a custom suit, his cufflinks sparkling, reclined and gestured at her apron, his remark projecting clearly. Did she craft that herself? It appears pulled from a bargain rack. The group tittered, faces swiveling to eye Sarah's basic uniform, its edge worn thin from repeated laundering. She repositioned a glass on the tray, her touch firm, though her mouth formed a narrow line. A lady sporting diamond studs joined in, her inflection taunting. Perhaps she's hoarding for an upgrade. Best of luck achieving that on server wages. The mirth swelled once more, a harsh flow dragging the entire space with it. Ela fidgeted in her chair, her fingers halting on her glass, her gaze shifting to Sarah, blending remorse and interest. Sarah avoided eye contact. She proceeded to the following table. her pace even, her quiet speaking volumes beyond their barbs. Hey, if this tale is striking a personal chord, pause to pick up your phone, tap like, add a comment, perhaps share how this scene echoes your own experiences. And if you'd like additional tales this authentic, subscribe. It's a minor action, yet it binds us, journeying side by side through such instances. All right, let's return to the events. The echoes of Omar's quip lingered when Clara bent ahead, her words sugary yet poisonous. Allowing a person like her to attend us is already a gift, wouldn't you agree? The group erupted, glasses tinkling as though she delivered the wittiest line ever. Sarah's hand trembled while filling the lawmaker's water, the liquid splashing enough to reveal her anxiety. She met Ella's stare for an instant. Ella wasn't chuckling. Her fingers twisted a napkin, her mouth clamped as if containing a tempest. Sarah kept her focus low, setting a glass with accuracy, her actions firm despite the shake in her grip. Omar reclined, his grin broad, his Arabic slicing like a knife. Observe her stumbling as if misplaced in a bazaar. No clue of her surroundings. The lawmaker snickered, his cheeks ruddy from excess wine, his tie loosening further. Likely present only for gratuities, he remarked, elbowing the media tycoon. The tycoon, his locks shining beneath the chandeliers, scoffed. Gratuities in that getup. She's fortunate we permitted her entry. The chuckles continued, each diner adding layers, their combined taunts ricocheting off the marble surfaces, amplifying in volume and edge. A youth in a velvet blazer, his hair styled flawlessly, stretched over the table, his tone saturated with irony. I wager she's never visited a venue like this until this evening. See how she grips that tray like a novice. Nearby diners laughed softly, their sights jumping to Sarah as she aligned a dish, her digits grazing the utensils. A woman draped in a fur wrap flung her head, cackling. She likely views this as peak elegance. Poor soul. Sarah's posture grew rigid, but she didn't halt, advancing to replenish a water jug. Her expression neutral, yet her eyes gleamed briefly, keen and resolute. Illa's napkin lay balled in her lap, her knuckles pale from clutching it. The space's hilarity resembled a current sweeping all but Sarah, who remained anchored against it. Sarah continued onward, laying a napkin near a dish, her fingers skimming the cloth's border. The jabs turned intimate, stinging fiercer. Does she even command proper English? Clara declared, her words projecting to adjacent tables, sufficient to turn several heads. I wager she's from some nowhere village, believing she struck gold by employment here. The media tycoon inclined his head, sipping his wine, probably incapable of spelling Dubai. A lady in a crimson gown at the table's far side tittered, her pitch shrill and scornful. Behold her footwear. Did she snag them from a second-hand shop? They're nearly disintegrating. The space chilled, the atmosphere dense with their entertainment, like pressure bearing on Sarah's ribs. Sarah halted, her hands idle for the initial occasion. She drew upright, her gaze fixing on Omar's. The space overlooked it at first, but Isla caught it. Her napkin dropped to her lap, her inhalation snagging. Sarah's tone stayed even, her Arabic ringing so purely it vibrated the air. The fine glass diminishes not its bearer. It merely mirrors the grace of its drinker. The phrase struck like thunder. The chuckles ceased. Omar's grin dissolved, his complexion blanching as if struck. The lawmaker hacked, his tie abruptly constricting. A distinguished guest, a lady with an envoy's emblem on her attire, inhaled sharply. She comprehends Arabic. Illa's eyes lit up, a faint grin cracking her features like a breach in stone. The table fell mute, utensils suspended, glasses poised midway. Sarah remained still. She stood poised, palms joined before her, her look firm yet not challenging. The media tycoon fidgeted, his Rolex flashing as he attempted a chuckle. That's surprising, he mumbled, his words fading. Clara's pearls rattled as she gulped, her cheeks burning, her poise fracturing. The atmosphere transformed, as if the space withheld its breath, anticipating the sequel. A staff member from a neighboring table, A young lady with a severe bun wavered passing Sarah, her eyes broad with wonder and dread. She murmured to a colleague who peeked at Sarah, then averted swiftly. The diners observed their murmurs sharpening, intensifying in intrigue. A fellow in a striped suit bent close, his tone subdued yet derisive. So, she grasped a handful of terms. That doesn't imply she fits here. His inflection belittled, but his gaze held on Sarah, probing for weakness in her calm. Sarah realigned a napkin on the table, her touch assured, though her mouth quirked subtly, suggesting an unvoiced thought. Illa's grin dimmed a touch, her eyes flitting between her father and Sarah, sensing an approaching gale. Omar regained poise first, his chuckle contrived, reverting to English to seize command. She likely learned some visitor sayings. Don't let it impress you. Clara interjected, keen to belittle. Precisely. It's mere imitation, devoid of substance, like a bird in bargain attire. The lawmaker agreed, striving to reclaim his bravado. Let's avoid overreacting. She's merely the staff. Murmurs spread among the diners, their tones hushed but pointed. Impossible, she's proficient, one claimed. She's fabricating, another grumbled. Omar crossed his arms, his gaze constricting. If you truly master it, demonstrate. Utter something noteworthy. As Sarah extended for an vacant wine goblet, a lady in golden fabric, her nails lacquered vivid red, wrapped her utensil on her dish, the noise crisp and intentional. Let's enjoy ourselves, she announced, her volume sufficient to attract attention. Recite a striking piece, or are you limited to 1 feat? The table guffawed, several diners applauding as if witnessing a show. Sarah's grasp halted on the goblet, her digits clenching briefly, then easing. She ignored the lady, but her frame aligned, her bearing adjusting subtly to draw focus. Illa's eyes expanded, her respiration light, as though foreseeing a major event. The space's vibe altered, the diners inclining, poised for Sarah's misstep. Sarah lowered the goblet, her action leisurely and purposeful, allowing their skepticism to simmer. She faced Omar, her expression serene, her eyes keen with insight. Then she recited, delivering a verse by al-Mutanabi, her tone gentle yet bearing ages of depth. The lines cascaded like water over rock, each sound flawless, the cadence pulsing with heritage. A learned guest at the table, a man with heavy lenses and subdued manner, almost let his tinsel fall. That's remarkable, he stated, his tone quivering. Only one immersed in Arab lands, delving profoundly, could articulate thus. The diners pivoted to Omar, their looks anticipatory, some nearly reproachful. Illa leaned in, murmuring, "Bah!" She nailed every phrase, her words soft but distinct, slicing the quiet like steel. Omar's jaw clenched, his digits drumming the surface in anxious beat. Clara's cheeks flamed, her pearls abruptly burdensome at her throat. Sarah didn't delay. She advanced to the subsequent guest, replenishing a water goblet, her features inscrutable as if she hadn't just appended the space. A man sporting a precise beard, his cufflinks etched with initials, eased back in his seat, his words oozing disdain. Fine phrases for a server. Wager she picked it up to dazzle visitors. His remark elicited a few subdued laughs, but they rang softer, less assured. Sarah's grasp lingered mid-act as she positioned a jug, her eyes glancing at the man momentarily before resuming. The space observed, awaiting her retort, but she withheld. She aligned a utensil on the table, her motions exact, her quiet an unbreakable barrier. Illa's grip eased on her napkin, her gaze fixed on Sarah, reflecting a silent power akin to her own. Omar persisted, his tone elevated, keen and frantic to recapture dominance. Verse is simple. Ornate language proves no grasp of true matters. What insight do you hold on business? Commerce. He gestured to the media tycoon, who smirked and advanced, posing Sarah an intricate query in Arabic on local trade duties and petroleum sectors. The lawmaker chuckled, whispering, "This ought to stump her." Clara savored her wine, grinning. Let's witness her counterfeit this. The query packed complexity, rife with specialist lingo and data crafted to bewilder, a snare to unmask her. Sarah attended, her head angled gently, her eyes vivid with concentration. The query wove a labyrinth of vocabulary and stats designed for her trip. Illa's palms balled beneath the table, her breaths brief, her gaze riveted on Sarah. Sarah responded without pause. She replied in Arabic, her tone lucid, outlining a thorough breakdown of shipping paths, fiscal effects, and exact stats from fresh agreements. She referenced facts as if authoring the documents, her phrasing exact, her reasoning impenetrable. The lawmaker's mouth gaped. He applauded deliberately at first, then briskly. "That's beyond proficiency," he declared, his words projecting through the space. "That's mastery." The space transformed anew. Diners regarded Sarah afresh, some with reverence, others discomfort. Omar's features strained, perspiration forming on his brow, his digits clutching the table's rim. Ila's palms unclenched, her eyes gleaming with near pride. Sarah inclined her head once, courteous, and proceeded to remove a dish, her actions unwavering as before. The talk hushed now, the hilarity vanished. Folks observed her, not merely as staff, but as an enigma defying their preconceptions. A fellow at the table's distant end, an envoy with silver locks and subdued aura, bent to his companion. "Who might she be?" he breathed, his tone faint yet laden with wonder. A lady in deep blue satin, her studs swaying like lights, cocked her head at Sarah, her words subdued but incisive. "She's likely flaunting for notice. Folks like her invariably do." The remark stayed low but spread, earning nods from the table. Sarah's grasp halted, adjusting a wine flask on a stand, her digits tracing the tag, her eyes narrowing faintly. She offered no reply, but her stance adjusted, spine firmer, motions more intentional. A nearby staffer dropped a tray, the crash easing tension briefly, yet all sights remained on Sarah. Illa's mouth opened as if to speak, but she held quiet. Her gaze tracked Sarah's every gesture. Omar's tone pierced, subdued and sour, clawing for dominance. "A worker stays a worker. Speech alters no station." Clara cackled, crisp and harsh, her pearls flashing in the glow. "Precisely. She's merely this evening's diversion. Let's not overdo it." Several diners agreed with nods, their grins resurfacing, tugging the space to their view. Sarah's mouth arched a sliver. Not joy, but keener, as if she'd endured such oft and grown weary. She replied not. She persisted in her tasks, her grasp assured, her eyes surveying the table as if piercing each soul. The lawmaker advanced, his volume raised, rallying the group. "She's likely inflating. No one of her sort could possess such knowledge." The media tycoon concurred, his sleek tresses capturing light. "Let's face facts, she's a server. This is pure theater." The phrases lingered weighty, awaiting Sarah's slip. She withheld. She placed a tray, her motions purposeful, and declared, her Arabic rich and echoing. "Yes, I served, yet I also trained under Professor Yusuf Al-Hassan, linguistic consultant to authorities." Silence blanketed the table as Sarah's revelation settled. The famed scholar's name resounding in the void. The lawmaker nearly toppled his goblet, his palm quaking as he steadied it. "I knew the professor," he announced, rising, his tone shaky with astonishment. "He accepted only elites, the sharpest minds. If she learned from him, she's outstanding." The hall hummed, faces turning, eyes broad with marvel. Ila inhaled sharply, her palm over her lips, her whisper faint. "I can't fathom it." Omar's complexion drained, his palms vise, like on the table, knuckles bone, white. Sarah ignored him. She continued her duties, her expression tranquil, her grasp firm, as if she hadn't just unleashed a revelation demolishing the space's beliefs. A diner in ebony formal wear, his timepiece diamond, studded, cleared his throat, his tone skeptical. "Even with his tutelage, she's here attending us. Doesn't that prove it all?" His phrases aimed to wound, yanking the space to their stance. A handful of diners murmured assent. Sarah's grasp lingered. "It reveals what?" Hovering over a dish, her digits curving lightly round its rim. She lowered it with a gentle chime, her features neutral, but her eyes darted to the man, keen and swift. Ila's frame tautened, her gaze bouncing between Sarah and the diner, readying for the follow-up. The space's vibe altered, the scorn weakening beneath Sarah's subdued power. The murmurs amplified, the space buzzing with queries. Who was she? How did she command such wisdom? Omar's tone shattered through, unsteady yet bold, his ego bruised. If she's so superior, why labor here? True skill wouldn't stoop thus. Clara jeered, her pearls shimmering as she angled her head. Precisely. Likely inventing to preserve dignity. The media tycoon reclined, grinning, his assurance rebounding. Let's watch her validate that. The atmosphere thickened with strain, diners observing, awaiting Sarah's collapse under their skepticism. Sarah exhaled, her look steadfast, as if anticipating this instant forever. She delved into her apron, extracting a faded envelope, its borders frayed yet bearing a regal emblem that sparkled under the lights. She unfolded it gently, her digit firm, and recited aloud in a lucid, even tone. Complete Merit Scholarship awarded to Sarah Collins, endorsed by Omar Al-Fayed. The space inhaled collectively, a shared gasp draining the air. Omar's face blanched, his palms shaking, his eyes bulging in disbelief. Years prior, he'd authorized that award among countless, erasing her visage, her identity, her being. Sarah met his eyes directly, her tone serene yet penetrating. You overlook multitudes, but we retain you eternally. A lady with a silver handbag, her lips vivid crimson, gasped openly, her palm to her bosom. She's linked to Al-Fayed. She breathed, volume reaching nearby tables. The space's buzz swelled, a surge of astonishment sweeping the diners. Sarah refolded the envelope, her action unhurried and exact, and returned it to her apron. Ila's eyes welled, and she rose, her seat scraping lightly on the floor. She traversed the space in swift strides, enveloping Sarah in an embrace, her tone fracturing. I'm so sorry, she breathed, her frame quaking. Sarah returned the hug, her features gentle yet resolute, her aura solid as stone. The ovation began tentatively. A few reluctant claps from the rear, then building to thunder. Diners rose, their expressions blending stun, respect, and discomfort. Omar sat rigid, his realm collapsing, his palm still clamped on the table as his sole anchor. The lawmaker shook his head, whispering unbelievable. His words faint amid the acclaim. Clara fixed on her wine goblet, her cheeks aflame, her pearls constricting at her throat. The media tycoon averted, his grin erased, his poise demolished. Sarah withdrew, resuming duties as if undisturbed, but every gaze now pursued her. A man in ivory attire, his cufflinks gleaming, rose, his tone raised yet wavering. This alters not her role tonight. She's still attending us. His phrases clutched desperately at authority, but rang hollow, overwhelmed by the ovation. Sarah halted, her palm on a chair, her eyes linking his briefly. She spoke not, but her head's angle, her brow's faint arch, conveyed all. The space's vibe shifted once more, the scorn now a vanishing whisper. Ela dabbed her eyes, reclaiming her seat, her look never straying from Sarah, as if beholding her anew. The evening extended beyond that. By dawn, the account had ignited like flames. A diner's unsteady phone clip of Sarah's retort exploded online, amassing millions of views swiftly. Remarks poured in, candid and vivid. She dismantled him with sheer elegance. Who is this lady? Omar earned his comeuppance. The media tycoon's firm severed a key endorsement by midday. His reputation smeared across the web. Clara's elite network shunned her, her high society bids evaporating like parched flow. The lawmaker's arrogant visage mimed everywhere. His blessing quip ridiculed endlessly, his election spots yanked abruptly. A week on, a regional journalist visited the eatery. Her pad gripped firm as she neared Sarah on break. Miss Collins, your account moved countless souls, she stated, her tone sincere. Could you share the sensation of confronting them? Sarah rested against the counter, her apron draped over her arm, her gaze remote briefly. She grinned softly, her digits grazing a mug's rim. It felt like voicing reality. She replied plainly, then resumed tasks, leaving the journalist mute. The eatery's other staff traded looks, their esteem for her now wordless but evident in their gestures. Omar endured the severest fallout. His firm's directors summoned an urgent session, and by weeks close, he was dismissed, his standing in ruins. None claimed Sarah orchestrated it. She required no effort. Truth wrought the havoc, like a current toppling all in reach. Allah visited the eatery a week later, her eyes puffy yet kind. A slim journal clutched in her grasp. "You transformed it all," she said, placing the journal in Sarah's palm. It brimmed with penned regrets, each stroke uneven yet genuine. Sarah inclined her head, tucking it into her pocket unread, her features serene but her eyes tender. Years back, Sarah had perched in a tight Cairo flat. Her guardian, Professor Al-Hassan, instructing her Arabic by flicker. His timbre, coarse yet warm, resounded in her mind as she strolled home that night. The Dubai horizon aglow against shadow. Words hold might, Sarah. Wield them prudently. She'd been a child then, absorbing each teaching, each tongue, each instant of his muted approval. She bore that now in her battered shoes, her basic outfit, her steadfast resolve. The city pulsed about her, but she proceeded solo, her stride firm, her spirit burdened yet complete. As Sarah navigated a crowded road, a vehicle horn blasted, its blast crisp and reminiscent, like her father's old auto. She stopped, her palm skimming the envelope in her pocket, her eyes tracing the vehicle's rear lamps as they dimmed into dusk. A stranger jostled her, offering a quick pardon, but she unregistered, her focus afar, her digits firming on the aged sheet. The recall of her father's guidance, his firm palm on her frame, neared now, steadying her amid urban turmoil. She drew a full breath, her frame easing, and advanced, her quiet, both guard and weapon. Sarah's existence altered little outwardly. She maintained extra hours, still forwarding funds for her mother's costs. But a shift occurred. Her bearing, her world's encounter in her eyes. Firmer, more assured. She'd always recognized her essence, even as the world denied it. Now denial proved impossible. A colleague at the eatery, a man with a weary grin, passed her a gratuity one night. His tone hushed. "You're beyond this spot, Sarah," he said, his look sincere. She nodded, slipping the note into her apron, her features calm but her eyes aglow with unvoiced depth. One dusk, as Sarah cleaned a table, a young child about 10 neared, holding a wrinkled sketch. "I viewed you online," the child said, her tone timid yet distinct. "You're incredibly courageous." She offered Sarah the sketch, a depiction of a figure upright amid tumbling stars. Sarah's digits followed the strokes, her mouth parting faintly, her eyes warming. She crouched, matching the child's stare. "Thank you," she said, her tone subdued yet affectionate, folding the sketch with care. The child's mother grinned from afar, her eyes dewy as Sarah rose and resumed. The eatery quieted as the tale slipped from prominence, but Sarah's essence endured. A loyal patron, an elder in battered leather, halted her one night, his tone rough yet benevolent. "You prompted us all to reconsider, kid," he said, sliding a lavish gratuity over the counter. Sarah's palm lingered on her cloth, her eyes linking his briefly before she nodded, pocketing the gratuity. His phrase's heft accompanied her, a tacit nod to the wave she'd stirred. She faced the counter anew, her motion firm, her quiet now its own might. "You've experienced it, right? That bite when someone condescends, assesses you by attire, origins, their imagined identity for you. You've occupied spaces unfit for you, where chill descended, and you persevered. You anchored firm not through rage, but a subdued power outshining any phrase. Sarah's account mirrors yours too. In essence, it's of rising firm, permitting truth to resound when the world seeks to mute you. You proved correct. You stood unalone. From where do you view? Add a remark below and tap follow to join me through sorrow, deceit, and ultimate mending.